athletes. We're going to build the best football program in the SEC Conference.
You have now arrived at Stadium in Gale.
The kick, it's been blocked again! How about it? It's been blocked again! It's going to heat one deep down the field. It's going to be to the goal line. It's going to be gone! It's a touchdown! And the Gators have won the game! Tyree Cleveland! How about? I can't believe what I just saw! Dropping back to throw, pops and fires the ball over the middle. It's Dory! It's Dory! Got a touchdown! Dory's got a touchdown! Oh man! Dory's got a touchdown!
Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out the winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium in Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium in Gale. It's your favorite Uncle Silk.
It's Dan.
And Tori. Working remote.
Working remote, same point, same time, though. Nonetheless, where you working remote from?
We're in Weston, baby. We're in 954, Broward County.
Nice. On the other side of Saltgrass.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to that, man.
Must be nice. I'm reporting live from about 10 degrees in Pennsylvania right now.
No,
It
sir.
is chilly, boys.
Yeah.
It has been cold for a week.
We
It's been a
took
little cold everywhere. What's cold? Elaborate on cold. What you got?
It is 10 degrees right now. It has not gotten above 20 degrees in the last 3 days. I know that people choose to do this, and this is the life that a lot of them accept. But as somebody that's lived in the cold before and has decided to come back, this is not a life that I'm willing to understand why people accept anymore.
I don't be soft, man. You been outside? Are you going outside?
Oh, yeah.
Snowball fights and shit? Or where you at with it?
Sort of. No snowball fights. We had snow. Let's see. I got up here on Thursday. There was snow on Thursday, and there was snow on what day is today? Today's Monday. So there's a little bit of snow on Saturday. There was some snow a bit north of where we were yesterday, where we did some Christmas stuff. So no snowball fights, but definitely a lot of snow, some black ice, that kind of stuff. But just cold. And it got so cold that you couldn't really even be outside, Silk. I mean, it was -12 with the wind chill on Sunday and Saturday. Pardon me. I mean, that's just temperatures that should not exist. You know what I mean?
Think about that. People, as people were colonizing the United States, some of them stopped in Minnesota, and they were like, "Yeah, not getting any better than this.
Yeah,
This is as good as it's gonna get. We'll just hang out here."
Yeah, I mean,
now, granted, Florida is uninhabitable without AC. So
sure, no, Florida invented AC, so shout out to Florida for the rest of the world. Or really, I guess they invented refrigeration. But imagine Silk having that Nick and Silk. Imagine having that knowledge of Pennsylvania and the cold, and New York and everything else, Minnesota, and then at some point in your life, you're like, you know what? Nebraska or Kansas. Like,
That's it. That's the
this is it, right?
Cornfields and cold.
what if it snowed less, but there was more ice? Let's try that.
A little flatter and nothing here. But
You just saw free land, man. It was like, you know what? I'll deal with it. I'll deal with the blizzards and everything else, man. It's like nothing like free land.
Oh man.
Nick, how you feeling down at 954? What's the weather been like for you?
We go to Christmas Eve mass every year, and this year my mom loves the cold. We did not take
cold or just all cold?
South Florida. She would like cold. She would like to move to Colorado and live there. So she made us take our pre-Christmas picture with our coats on inside the house. And my future sister-in-law was like, "Why are you guys wearing coats inside?" And I said, "Well, my mom wanted to remember that it was actually cold in South Florida for this Christmas. So we have
It's rare.
Pictures indoors with coats on."
It's rare to have a cold Christmas in South Florida, man. I've been acting all out of the norm. I got a fire pit going. I've been making hot cocoa every night. Pull some jackets out of the attic that I haven't worn forever. I've been wearing multiple in one day. Leather, North Face, switch it up to a jean jacket, trying to get all the benefit out of my cold stuff that I never get to use.
Bought this thing 10 years ago, and I've worn it 3 times. You got to get a steady rotation of our cold weather gear right now.
Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah, I saw in Tampa. As I was looking at the weather, I guess Tampa celebrated its coldest Christmas in like 33, 34 years. I would imagine South Florida's the same. So,
Absolutely.
as somebody that grew up down there in South Florida, I mean, I think that there was maybe one Christmas that I like distinctly remember where it was cold. So it certainly gives a different vibe to the Christmas holiday. I was talking to Brooke's mom and Brooke about just Christmas as a whole. Growing up in South Florida, you never have snow. There's never a chance of snow for Christmas or a white Christmas or anything else. And it's something that you look at on TV and you're like, man, I really wish I could have that experience once or twice. So it was cool. We did have a bit of a white Christmas here for the first time, but certainly having something a little bit better than 78 degrees is also a little bit nicer for South Florida as well. So hope you boys enjoyed it.
A white Christmas in South Florida is definitely different.
Very, very different. Yeah. We're talking very different things. Very different things. Doesn't change the interest. No, I'm just kidding. Boys, let's get on to the show. As always, the show is sponsored by our friend Alan with Alan Horn Insurance with State Farm there in Jasper, Georgia. If you are in Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, or Alabama, give Alan a call at 706-629-2888 or visit him at alanhorninsurance.com. If you're looking for life insurance, renter's insurance, boat insurance, car insurance, whatever it might be, always shop around your policy, especially this time of year, New Year's resolutions. Maybe one of your resolutions is to save some money. Give Alan a call, 706-629-2888 or alanhorninsurance.com. All right, gentlemen, let's get into National Signing Day first. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about today with the transfer portal and everything else. National Signing Day comes and goes. Early National Signing Day comes and goes. Last Wednesday, ultimately, Gators do not get a few of the names that they were after leading up to National Signing Day. But in the meantime, don't really lose anybody except for Isaiah Walker, which is a name that a lot of fans had already known was likely going to sign with UCF before National Signing Day occurred. It's our understanding that he did not have the ability to sign with Florida. But right now, the Gators do sit at 10th overall in the On3 recruiting rankings, right behind Oregon and just ahead of Clemson. But if you look at average rating, Florida sits, I think, 5th overall in the country with 16 4-stars and 4 3-stars in that class. Gentlemen, want to get your thoughts on early National Signing Day and where everything sits right now in your mind. You guys are both on mute.
Sorry about that. No surprises on signing day. Like we kind of predicted. Nick told the people last show not to expect any surprises. From that moment on, I was expecting surprises coming from the opposite side. Just watching out for guys like Kelby Collins, Jakeem Jackson, Sharif Denson, a lot of the guys that other staffs, other teams were coveting and trying to flip at the last minute. But we was able to hold on. This class is just missing some top-tier offensive linemen. I think you're recruiting 5-star quarterbacks like you're doing with Jay Rashada and DJ Ladd with back-to-back cycles. You got to get premium guys in the trenches. So I think we're missing some top-tier offensive linemen. Obviously, we didn't do anything at tight end, which is a huge question mark. And we'll see how we move in the portal, which is something people have a lot of questions about as well. But okay class, man. I think if you look at the difference between with him and Dan Mullen is keeping the guys at home, the blue chippers that are from Florida, within your 400 or 500 driving distance. So locking down your perimeter was a good thing they did this cycle. Skill positions, I think, is very good with receiver and defensive back. They got some killers. I would have liked for Corey Raymond to get a 5-star defensive back. I was hoping for maybe some Riggs action down Desmond Riggs or somebody else. I know Cormani McClain was out of the picture. I know our staff backed away from a lot of those shenanigans, but do like the skill positions. Like I said, receiver, DB, one running back. Would have liked to get one more. We missed out on Mark Fletcher coming down the stretch there. Would have liked to gotten him, but not a deal breaker. I think he's a replaceable type talent, not a can't miss type guy. But my biggest concern or my biggest outlook is just offensive lineman. If we could have landed a guy like Big Honcho Pancake and a guy like that coming down the stretch to protect these guys, I would have felt a lot better about this class. That's where I'm at with it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the offensive lineman. I hear what you're saying, Silk. I like the offensive lineman. I like the offensive lineman. I've talked to one scout and then another coach that think Roger Kearney's got some of the best film, and it's something Billy Napier said on signing day, some of the best film of any offensive lineman in the country. And then you look at the other guys, Bryce Lovett and Najee Harris. That's a dope name, Najee. And they are what this staff wants. You look at a 17-year-old kid who's 6'3", 328, and another one who's 6'5", 336. Those are some big guys. And I mean, I think the class overall is good. You kept an Aaron Gates. I think he's a stud. I think Jordan Castell's a stud. Kelby Collins, you got somebody from Nick Saban's backyard who Nick Saban wanted. And this wasn't like
to the last minute. He was trying to get him.
Yeah, this wasn't like, like a LaMichael Pirine, my guy LaMichael, where Auburn told him you're too slow. And Nick Saban came in super late. This was, Kelby was a guy that Nick Saban wanted probably since he was a sophomore in high school and continued recruiting. So you're winning that battle. You held on to Andy Jean. There was some FSU smoke late there. And then I think you got really good. I think they did a really good job at the skill positions. If you look at wide receiver, you look at defensive back, you did really well there. You have to hit in the portal now for a couple more offensive linemen after, we'll get into the transfer portal talk, but a couple more offensive linemen, interior defensive line help. The linebacker room is scary thin. So the biggest thing right now for Florida is this class is okay. Not okay. This class is good. It hit a bunch of needs. It's a good class. It didn't close the gap.
Right.
It doesn't. It does not close the gap. But listen, and you talk, and we can even talk about NIL, but I think NIL is like Alabama. Sure, they're playing the game, but I don't think they're paying like Texas A&M did last year or Miami did. Like they're recruiting on Nick Saban, and they're recruiting on a program that has been a machine just developing and sending guys to the NFL.
Right.
Georgia isn't spending like that because they're the hot team right now. They are coming off of a national championship on their way to possibly winning back-to-back national championships. So some of that recruits itself. Right now, if you're Florida, the guys that you're committing, like maybe they know Tim Tebow, but like they were born in like 2001, 2002, 2005. Like they don't remember Florida being good. So they're the stuff that we remember, the Tebow, the Urban years, the Spurrier years, like these guys don't remember that. Like the hot teams to them right now are Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Those are the teams that have been dominating. Clemson.
I don't think these kids care about hot these days. I think they're a little bit more information driven, and then NIL plays a big part. But I think them seeing the Georgia, what Georgia and Bama's doing as far as getting guys to the money, the real money, the second bag. The NIL's cool, but Georgia and Alabama can also sell draft picks on, hey, you're gonna get a little something now, but the ultimate goal is NFL draft day, and this is where we get guys drafted, and this is how our guys get paid in the league.
Yeah, no, there was a just on that. I know Darren Heitner, which I know seems to be a toxic name right now in Gator Nation for some reason, but
it's toxic. I've been out of the loop a little bit. It's toxic.
Yeah. So he tweeted something about a quarterback that signed with Ohio State, Lincoln Kienholz, I believe is his name. And he had the opportunity to probably collect more money going to Washington through their NIL. But he said, I think I can go to Washington and get money, or I can go to Ohio State and be developed and then potentially reach my goal of going to the NFL. So I do think that there's going to be a large contingent of a large contingent of players that are still looking for that, and so no matter what Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, maybe USC, they're paying an NIL. I do think that they're also going to look at that opportunity to go to the NFL and see where they can grow, certainly their career. But going through this list, if you look at the On3 rankings, the Gators end up with 5 players in the top 100: Eugene Wilson, Cameron James, Aiden Mizell, Roger Kearney, and Jakeem Jackson. Jakeem Jackson was a name that, a lot of schools were going after. I've heard it from, multiple coaches in the area that they are multiple coaches and folks that do 7-on-7 that think Jakeem Jackson is amongst the most talented cornerbacks, in this class, definitely in the state of Florida. Maybe even better than some of the names that were ranked higher than him. If you look at 247, the Gators grabbed Jaden Rashada. He was their number 29 overall player and a 5-star. Kelby Collins was ranked in their top 100. So was Jakeem Jackson and Cameron James as well. And then if you look at rivals, Kelby Collins, Jaden Rashada, are their top 100 players as well. And certainly there's going to be some shaking out. So Gators do grab a couple in the top 100, which is what you need. But like you said, both Nick and Silk, you're going to need to figure out a way to close that gap. So still a few more months before the next national signing day, and the one that everybody used to take off work for, which is kind of hard to believe in the next couple weeks or over the next 6 weeks or so. But I don't expect a lot of additions to this class. Silk, Nick, have you guys heard anything about how many more guys that Florida might potentially be going after?
They're under the limit right now.
Right.
I think I've got Florida like 79 scholarships, but the 85 is such a fictional number that doesn't need to be abided by until fall camp. Like Billy put Kyle Engel on scholarship last year in the spring and the summer, which is nice, which is great for the kids. Like, hey, you're getting free money right now, that you weren't getting, and it's not going to be there in the fall, but it's you take as many classes as you can in the summer. So I think Florida more so, if I'm looking at this roster and I'm working on a depth chart and a scholarship chart and breaking it down for a little bit, you need to spend those spots on portal guys that can come in and play right away. I don't know that a guy as good as you are as a high school player that can come in and show up in early August, late July, and be ready to go in September.
Right.
And be ready to be a huge impact for you in September. You need Florida needs to start signing and getting guys committed in the portal like last week.
Right.
Expeditiously.
Yeah, and if you look at the recruiting rankings right now on On3, I think there's only, just a quick count, has maybe 4 of the top 100 players in the country not signed right now. So certainly the talent that you would go after might be very, very limited in the state of Florida. If you look at the top 20, only Cormani McLean is unsigned, all the way down to number 35, Florida, and that's Raymond Cottrell, who used to be committed to Florida.
Florida missed that drama. Missed that Cormani drama, which continues to play out.
Well, yeah, it has to play out until National Signing Day in 6 weeks, because they had up until this past Friday to sign. Certainly, what Miami and John Ruiz did not want to see or hear, but certainly another 6 weeks of them waiting around on pins and needles to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to add any more to the class from high school. There may be some sleeper that we don't know about, but from the grand scheme of it all, I think with Nick, most of these additions should and will be from the portal. Speaking of Cormani, I think Jakeem Jackson, I'm a defensive back guy. I think Jakeem Jackson is one of them guys. He's going to come into a similar mode, play early like Janoris Jenkins and Joe Hayden. Kyer Elam, all in that same type of ability type of guy. I know we want the 5-star for Corey Raymond, but a kid that's going to play very early in my mind is going to be very effective. Whether you get a guy out of the transfer portal or not, I expect Jakeem Jackson to compete, whether it's a transfer or anything on campus. He's just like that.
Yeah. Q Lee mentioned in the comments here, and it's something that I was going to mention as well. Florida does not, if you look at the On3 rankings, Florida does not grab a recruit that is in the top 20 overall in the state of Florida. A couple go to Miami, a couple go to Alabama. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are going to Georgia. You have to go all the way down to number 22 for Aiden Mizell as the first of the top-ranked Florida players in the state to sign with the Gators. FSU grabs one with Hakeem Williams, but outside of that, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and Miami have a large share of the top 20 players in the state of Florida. And going into next year, I know that Florida has a couple of recruits next year, and they the top 20 of that group locked in and are leading for a few others. But certainly, that's a way to help close that gap for sure.
Yeah, you want to be in the vicinity of grabbing kids in that top 20, but I'm just going to be all the way 100. I like Hakeem Williams. I think he's a talented kid, but I take 3 receivers in my receiver room over Hakeem, man. That's just being all the way up with it. I think Eugene Wilson, Aiden Mizell, Andy Jean,
sure,
all those guys are super talented and could play very early. Top tier speed, top tier work ethic, route running. Andy Jean is going to be, I think, a contributor year one as well. A guy that's going to play right away and be like one of our top targets. Jaden Rashard got some targets. He got some weapons.
Yep.
There's no lack of that. We just need a tight end and a few other things there and to get in this portal. But not a bad haul as far as skill position and weapons wise.
Yep.
Yeah. To me, I'd probably look at Eugene Wilson as being the guy that has the best opportunity to play right away, largely depending on what Ricky Pearsall does. If Ricky Pearsall decides, hey, I'm going to try the NFL, you've got Ty Bowman and Eugene Wilson in the slot. You've got literally 2 guys. So it's not just the talent, which I think he's super talented, a really unique, dynamic receiver ball player. But then you have the opportunity of, listen, there's only one other guy really that plays your position. So you've got opportunity to step in right away. And if not win the starting job outright, at least, eat into those reps and start getting some looks there in the slot.
I think what our wide receiver corps is missing more than anything. I think Eugene Wilson is going to play. I think all these guys are going to play fairly early. But I think what our wide receiver corps is missing more than anything is the ability to separate and run like crisp routes. And Gene bring that element since Van Jefferson has left. I don't think nobody's been able to run routes and separate. Van Jefferson wasn't the fastest kid on the team, but his route running gave him the ability to separate from defenders, and I see a lot of that in Andy Jean. But I do think the whole receiver core, all these guys, are going to play early.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that you can look at each one of the wide receivers that the Gators brought in, between Aiden Mizell, 6'2", 180, Eugene Wilson, 5'11", 162, and then let me get down to Gene, sorry. Andy Jean, 6'1", 180, but if you watch all 3 of their films and if you look at their production, they're all 3 very different players that I think that are going to add to that group. You put them with Jaden Rashada, you add in, hopefully some additional talent from the transfer portal, maybe you keep around Ricky Pearsall. Yes, the wide receiver group is going to miss some seniority and going to miss some reps going into next year, with Justin Shorter leaving, and certainly Ricky Pearsall, there's a chance for him to leave. And Nick, I think that your take on it of what does he have, to gain by coming back, probably not much. Certainly there could be, some growing pains with this group, but, Florida can continue to add these top-notch wide receivers that are all 3 bringing different things and not, the same. You could have carbon copied every single recruit that Billy Gonzalez brought in. And while there was some talent there, they were certainly all the exact same wide receiver. You're certainly elevating the talent with this group. And I think that you're seeing that in, a couple of different areas. I think that you saw that with defensive back as well, both at cornerback and safety as well. But, I think that this class answers a lot of questions about, or fills in some gaps in some certain areas, but, still leaves a lot of questions. Offensive line, there's still some question marks. I think that there's obviously massive question marks at linebacker and tight end, and certainly your interior defensive line as well. So certainly some big areas and then some holes to fill in the transfer portal, which we'll get into in a second. But any final thoughts on this recruiting class before we get into the transfer portal?
My favorite guy, I tweeted on the timeline, my favorite guy on offense is Andy Jean. Favorite recruit on defense is Jakeem Jackson. I think getting Jaden Rashada is huge. There's no like type of, especially what happened with Marcus Stokes, right? If they didn't have a plan, you don't grab Jaden Rashada, this could be a complete, like, There's some people complaining, but if you don't have a plan for or a move to get Jaden Rashada here and Marcus Stokes and that whole debacle goes down, this class looks a lot uglier. Not in the top 10, no marquee quarterback. It just looks totally different recruiting class. So I think Jaden Rashada as well is the most valuable player in this class, just from a lot of standpoints. So that's my overall take on the class. Got to get better if we want to close the gap on Georgia. I know there's a lot to figure out. It's just not on the staff. College recruiting is a different world when it pertains to NIL, roster management and all of that. So we got a lot to figure out from an infrastructure standpoint. But not a bad class, just doesn't close the gap. Not just gonna say not a bad class, a good class. Just doesn't close the gap to the top dogs in the conference with Georgia and what Alabama did on the recruiting trail this year.
Yeah. Nick, who are some of your favorite recruits?
Yeah, I think I'll echo Jakeem Jackson. I think he's super talented. And then offense, I'm going to split my two favorite up with Rod Kearney and Eugene Wilson. I don't know that it's really hard to project an offensive lineman to start right away, but like for what I said earlier with Eugene Wilson, depending on what Ricky Pearsall does, and 2 weeks ago at the Las Vegas Bowl, he said he's still figuring it out, and I don't know who's throwing him the ball.
Right.
We know.
Yeah, sort of an idea. I think we know a little bit.
There's one of two guys that are going to throw him the ball, and it's not Jaden Rashada. Like if Jaden Rashada wins the job, more power to him. He'll be given the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think
a lot of green markets in your future,
But I don't think he does. And if Jaden Rashada is your starting quarterback, I think you're probably still a 5-win team. So there's a lot of work to be done.
5 wins with Jaden Rashada slap a little different than 5 wins with Mertz. I tell you that.
I don't think anyone's happy with 5 wins. Well, you spin it. You can get your pizza maker on and spin that dough, but it's still
just spin it. Just from a program building standpoint. You're not
because the fans will bury Rashada and it'll be DJ Lagway needs to start week 1 now.
Yeah.
Because Jaden Rashada can only win 5 games.
Outside of irrational fans, from my perspective, if Jaden Rashada is the quarterback, you win 5 games. Now, clearly, you're building on the future. You got a graduate transfer that came in here on a stopgap. You get stopgaps to win right now, And we got a lot to play out, so it's a lot of scenarios that we just guessing on right now. But and from my perspective, if 5 wins with a graduate transfer and 5 wins with Jaden Rashada would just look different. And it's just a lot of unknowns right now. We'll see what the rest of the roster look like when we start making additions here.
Yeah, we still have a long time before we start to debate who's going to lead the Gators to 5 wins next season. Nick's ready to have that debate now. No, I think that 5 wins, no matter how you slice it, creates a really precarious situation for the Gator fan base. I think that you have some that will understand. I think you have a lot that won't. I think you have a lot of frustration, and then you start to. That's when the pressure starts to build, right? No matter if it's 5 wins with a freshman quarterback and maybe didn't look pretty, but you're growing and everything else. But, with NIL, with the ability to transfer, you get 5 wins, maybe you have another mass exodus, right? There's just so many different things that could happen at that point, which, it starts to scare me a little bit about the future of what this staff would look like, should the team get 5 wins next year. But let's figure it out a little bit more with the transfer portal discussion. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to our friends over at Homefield Apparel, homefieldapparel.com. If you are looking for the best in vintage Florida Gators or about 70 different programs out there, go visit homefieldapparel.com. Appreciate all of you guys that tagged us in photos that you got off of Homefield Apparel for the Christmas holiday and the Hanukkah holiday. So give them a check or a look at homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale. All one word. All right, gentlemen, we are going to have a discussion here about quarterback. The Gators do grab a quarterback in the transfer portal, a name that is polarizing, to say the least. The Gators
That's a word.
That is the word that I chose to use here. The Gators grab quarterback Graham Mertz, 6'3", 205 pounds, former quarterback of Wisconsin, originally from Mission, Kansas. Was originally an On3 consensus 4-star and ranked as the number 4 overall quarterback in the country, outside of Kansas City in his recruiting days. Arrived in Wisconsin, helped the Wisconsin Badgers to back-to-back Big Ten championship games. Came out in 2020. Had a solid year, ends up, with some injuries and some other things. In 2021, threw for 1,958 yards, 10 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 2022 with 2,136 yards and 19 touchdowns. Obviously, Wisconsin made a change at head coach. Graham Mertz decides to enter the transfer portal, visits UF a couple of weeks ago. A lot of folks were unsure of whether that would be as a preferred walk-on or as a scholarship. Has announced that he will be committing and has signed his letter of intent to join the University of Florida Gators football team here in the spring. So this should be a great discussion topic. Nick, so
I think the questions of, is this the preferred walk-on, was just like fans hoping.
Right.
Why whether or not you're asked to leave Wisconsin or you decide to leave Wisconsin, you're not paying $30,000 out-of-state tuition to maybe be the starter and maybe be the backup for your last year of college. Like, he was not coming to Florida as a preferred walk-on.
Right.
I think he is a significantly less athletic Anthony Richardson. And that's probably my take.
That's a very good take right there, Nick.
On Graham Mertz as a quarterback. So, I think we're throwing Jack Miller out, like just completely disregarding him. I don't think Jack Miller wins you the SEC East next year. I don't think a lot of this roster does, but I think we're throwing Jack Miller out based on one performance when the team around him was essentially the Little Giants, and you tasked him with going to win a game against an Oregon State team that was trying to win 10. Like, that game meant a lot for Oregon State. I think Florida had a lot of guys that were happy to go to Las Vegas and happy to be able to be home for Christmas because the bowl game was early. You had two teams with two totally different goals and ideas and motivations for being in that game. And everyone who wanted to bench Anthony Richardson for half the season and wanted Jalen Kitna or Jack Miller to play has already thrown out Jack Miller. So I think it's going to be a Jack Miller, Graham Mertz spring quarterback battle. And I think Jaden Rashada will probably go ahead of Max Brown and take that 3 spot. But like that, the quarterback room's not good. It's not a good situation.
Well, I think we've said the quarterback room is not been good for a while now, right? I mean, I think a lot of us anticipated Anthony Richardson leaving. I think a lot of people anticipated that, Florida would have a quarterback leave the class, right? Or leave, the group. Obviously, I don't think any of us expected Jalen Kitna, and certainly the way that it happened. And I don't know if there's not a chance that another quarterback doesn't leave, for another opportunity for them to be able to get some more playing time. But this group is not what you want going into next year. And, I think a lot of the names, the Devin Learys, the Grayson McCalls, the Pratt out of Toledo or Tulane, pardon me. There's just a lot of names that seem to resonate a lot more with Gator fans than Graham Mertz. But, the Gators grab him early, right? There's still a lot of quarterbacks that have not yet signed anywhere, but, the Gators have gone and said, hey, this is our guy going to next year, or at least one of the guys.
Well, we would never accuse Florida of tampering, but Michael Pratt,
they don't. They're the only school in the country that does it.
For sure. But Michael Pratt announced a couple of days ago, I think like the 23rd, that he was coming back to Tulane, that he was staying.
Right, because the Gators got Graham Mertz.
That's I think maybe the Gators knew that he was going to stay. Again, allegedly, because they would never tamper. But you move on from what I think was probably your number one guy in Pratt and take somebody else. we're seeing a guy in Grayson McCall who
Mertz was
maybe
visiting way before that decision anyway. When we all were like, "Why the hell is Mertz visiting?" So they were fairly early targeted on him, and so was Kentucky. I like the interest in Hurts was interesting as well, and then I like Devin Leary had his injury stuff.
Right.
We don't know like what the deal is with Sam Hartman, but hearing there's some issues with him as well. It just wasn't a clear cut of like options or who do you bring in. You possibly need to bring in two guys, let alone one.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a preferred walk-on from IMG to come in at quarterback in this recruiting class as well. But you definitely need capable bodies. Could Graham Mertz turn out to be, Devin Hooker or the light comes on like my man Bo Nix? Does the light semi come on late in his career? Wisconsin is not the best place for quarterbacks. That's a possibility. Wouldn't bank on it. Could be Appleby, Del Rio 2.0. Mm-hmm. Who knows, man? But was not a lot of options out there. I would have loved to see us get Michael Pratt, Sam Hartman, or a guy like that if we're tampering. But just not a lot of availability. Devin Leary is a guy that's probably wouldn't get cleared at Florida with his injuries. So what options do you have? This is the pickle we was going to be in once, and then try to warn people on here. Everybody wanted Anthony Richardson going, but you need a quarterback. It sounds cute and fun when you're a disgruntled fan on Saturday and irrational, but the kid was more than capable. He's about to go first round in the NFL, and you're about to replace him with Graham Mertz right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, just because they're a top flight quarterback doesn't necessarily mean that there's interest in Florida. It doesn't mean that Florida has interest in them. On the same token, right? Grayson McCall. I think a lot of people have talked about him. Certainly there's some questions about where he sits academically, not necessarily with grades, but with major. Between Auburn and Florida, and if Florida is able to do that. And just because it's a name that you're interested in doesn't mean that if Florida doesn't get him, that Billy Napier is a bad recruiter. A lot of these guys are looking for different things, and it's not just NIL. And I don't think that Florida blew their NIL load on Rashada and Lagway and other players either. I do think that there's, oftentimes a certain thing that a player is looking for when they transfer, especially at quarterback. I mean, there's only 130-ish starting quarterback positions, available in college football. And of those, there's maybe only 30 to 50 available, each and every year that if you're going to go and transfer, because you're not going to go transfer just to hopefully compete for that number one spot. You want to almost be guaranteed, or at least given that, that idea that you are the leader in the clubhouse for that role. Graham Mertz, it's interesting. I didn't know he's not the guy that I would have gone after, like in my mind, but I am interested to know why there is so much negative attention thrown his way. I don't think that he's great. I don't think that he is necessarily the best, quarterback that is on the market, but certainly a highly ranked guy at a high school, fits the scheme, is, able to use his legs, did play at a high level. Yes, wasn't perfect. And yes, certainly has some challenges, but definitely the nature in which there was so much just negativity towards him was a bit surprising. Was it at all surprising to you guys?
With this fan base? Nah. I wasn't shocked at all, man. I heard the name just, when the name was casually mentioned and him taking the visit, everybody went bonkers. So not shocked, but there's still a lot to learn, bro. These quarterbacks get on the new coaches. Nobody predicted Hendon Hooker to have the year he had. Do it. And like you said, scheme fit, a lot of the pistol stuff turning his head, a lot of the stuff that AR struggled with, he's coming from a system that does similar things. So we'll see. That's all we can do is wait and see at this point. Could there be a potential quarterback into the portal later? But I don't foresee us going after anybody then. Like you said, a lot of these guys are giving the heads up that you're going to be the guy type situation. He does have to compete with Jack Miller. To be honest with you, from the bowl game, I don't know if Jack Miller beats him out, and then that bowl game is not a good indication. But just like that bowl game, our whole offense went through a whole identity crisis that game. I don't know what we would be with Graham Mertz and Jack Miller. From a run game perspective, offensive line, we got to talk about that as well. On the offensive line, they looked great that game. So we got a lot of things to just shore up this offseason. A lot of work to do.
Yep. All right. So also in the world of the transfer portal, pardon me, let me just pull this up. The Gators do grab a few other names here. Caleb Banks, who I know that we talked about last time, but it is important to talk about again. Caleb Banks is going to be transferring to the Gators from Louisville, originally from Michigan, was ranked as the 982nd best player in his class coming out of high school, was a guy that a lot of the Louisville fan base and a lot of the writers that cover Louisville were surprised or were disappointed to see him leave, as they do think that he is a guy that will contribute, certainly at the next level. And I know that the Gators are looking for certainly for that. 6'6", 255 pounds, I think played about 28 snaps, had a couple sacks during that time, but he will have 3 years to play 3, I believe, for the Gators. And then the Gators also, although this hasn't been officially announced, the Gators also are going to be grabbing linebacker Taraja Mitchell from Ohio State, originally a 2018 recruit, was ranked as the 35th best overall player in the country in that class, the number 5th linebacker and the number 2 player in Virginia. Didn't have a ton of production at Ohio State. And certainly I think that this one will be a situation that until everything kind of gets figured out after the bowl games and everything else.
He's a starter, Daniel. That guy's a starter right now.
Oh, at Florida? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But at Ohio State, just 63 tackles, 31 solo tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 1 pass deflection. Played just 4 games in 2022. But you've seen the linebacker group. Just plug him right in.
I mean, you've got Derek Wingo, who just had shoulder surgery.
Yep.
And is going to have foot surgery. I think he'll be ready for the spring. You've got who else? I mean, I think you're like 3 deep there. Like Jaden Robinson. Like if he's here in the spring,
yep.
Like you're going to be getting reps, my guy. Reps. Make sure you're doing your conditioning now.
Who else? You got Scooby Williams, right?
Scooby. I think those are your 3 inside linebackers.
That's incredible. That's nuts to me.
Did not do well recruiting linebacker in the portal. And if you're not announcing Mitchell yet, I guess we'll have to see if he gets on campus in January for spring, or if he's going to be a guy that won't be on campus for the spring semester.
Yeah, announcement. It's different.
Shamar James too. Shamar.
Yeah.
Wingo, Shamar, Scooby are your 3 on campus right now, and then Jaden Robinson would make 4. So you'd actually be able to have a 2 deep.
Let's go
at inside linebacker.
So let's run through. If you look at
linebacker recruiting is abysmal. That's announcement away. A change at that position is for us. Because I know the on-field product wasn't the greatest, and it was year 1, but I didn't see a lot of improvement from the area. But the recruiting is just non-existent. Damn
right.
near.
I mean, the on-field production was you got Jay Bateman got the best out of Amari Burney and Ventrell Miller. I think Amari Burney and Ventrell Miller had their best seasons of their Gator careers on the field.
That's true.
Okay.
And then you recruited one player.
Right. And that's on top of them not recruiting well over the last few seasons, even before that.
Sure, but that's not on this staff.
Well, I mean, certainly some of it has to. It doesn't have to be on the staff that they didn't recruit well, previously, but it has to be on the staff to solve that problem, right? Like with the transfer portal and with your ability to recruit, to grab one player over the last, we'll say 12 months is pretty abysmal. I mean, you add in Mitchell, you have now 2 players that you've added in, and during that time, you've lost Ventrell Miller to the draft. You've lost Amari Burney to the draft. You've lost David Reese, right? You've lost Chief Borders. You've lost Lloyd Summerall, who play outside linebacker in that buck position, right? What do you have, right? So, I mean, you can say it's not their fault that they didn't recruit well 3 years ago, but it's their fault that they haven't done anything since.
Sure. And
I mean, you can say that about a lot of different. I mean, you could blame staffs forever. That staffs wouldn't get fired in 3 years if you could say, well, it's not my fault. This is the staff I inherited. This is the situation that you're in now, right? And I'm not going to be one to start to say that there's, got to be all these changes and everything else is going on.
Bateman got to go. I will. I don't got
yeah.
I don't want to fire anybody, but just from just all this is just business, and in this business, you either put up or you don't, and it's just not a lot. And just shuffling the staff around. Obviously, Bateman was a guy that we fell into. We missed a lot of our first options when it pertains to linebacker coach, and if he's not a good mesh and he's not holding up his end of the bargain when it pertains to recruiting and also on-field production, like, you just got to be looking for a switch there. In my mind, that's what I'm looking for. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, we just live in a time, and I'm not a sky is falling type of person. I mean, I think anybody that's listened to the show or, has listened to me for 10 years knows that I'm not or I guess 12, 13, however long it's been on Twitter. To be somebody, it's kind of hard to believe, isn't it, Nick? But
it's getting old, man.
Yeah, I know the hairline was better and everything else, but I'm not a sky is falling type of person, but in a situation where you pride yourself on talent acquisition and you pride yourself on being able to develop and build a roster, 12 months in, and to have 2 additions, and certainly there has to be more additions to the linebacker room over the next couple of weeks and couple of months here. But, where do you look at yourself as an SEC caliber unit at linebacker? And you might be one of the worst linebacker groups in the SEC next year, no matter what you do.
Follows. There's some options out there with linebacker, and I know these guys are recruiting, so you just got to follow the follows. We'll see who they get into the fold, but it is some good linebacker options in the portal.
I mean, maybe it's just not happening like on our timeline, the timeline that we want. I mean, if you look at our recruiting rankings, I mean, there's a bunch of talented guys still in the portal. You have to know this staff. Just like look at what would Florida's offense have been without the portal last year?
I just gotta relax, man.
Like without the portal last year, you wouldn't have had Osiris Torrance, an All-American. Right. You wouldn't have Montrell Johnson. You wouldn't have Ricky Pearsall. Like this staff,
the team
understands the importance of the portal. And listen, until you start seeing like everyone wants. You want everyone to be here right now. Like right now, I'm looking at that the guys that are still available. There's a defensive lineman, and Braden Fisk, who I think is getting some USC and some FSU buzz. But like, there's guys in the portal, offensive lineman, tight end. I don't think this is a sexy product to sell a tight end, whether you're a transfer portal guy or if you're a tight end that's a junior in high school, senior in high school. Like look at what the offense was, and if you look at what the offense was at UL, and I'm a tight end, it's not the offense I want to be in. I'm a sixth offensive lineman who catches a pass every now and then.
Mm-hmm. It's like Mike Gesicki and the Dolphins, which is what a disappointing Christmas for me.
Yeah, Santua just giving out gifts.
It's like Wisconsin, right? They run similar 12 personnel, a lot of blocking. I mean, how many targets they use the tight end, but they don't get fed the ball all game like that. It comes down to the seller. That's all that recruiting comes down to. We the University of Florida. A tight end wanting to put on this and play on this level of football. It's just like, I know the offense is one thing. That is a thing. But it's an opportunity to play in the SEC. Like I said, schools like Wisconsin, schools that use tight ends sparingly, but they're known for their tight ends. In run game, they still get elite tight ends in. So I think they got to find a way to sell it regardless. Like the tight end usage is just not an excuse because, like I said, Wisconsin and those schools in the Big Ten, they get those guys to come in, block, and do the shenanigans and catch a couple balls a game. Maybe
we can get Graham Mertz to make some phone calls to some old teammates.
Need to bring some linemen with him.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the play, right? Like
just bring all the best players. Yeah. I like
who's
that
who's the player to be named later in the merch
in the
trade?
deal.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe there's just maybe this is just the first layer of the onion. All of a sudden you start to see 4 or 5 offensive linemen from Wisconsin come over.
Wisconsin's
a couple
whole
of
offensive
tight
line
ends,
comes with them.
Maybe a defensive tackle or two. Some corn-fed beef up there. It might be joining this roster, but
what date does the window close for the first NIL portal? Not NIL portal. I say NIL. That basically what it is. Transfer portal. I'm about to start calling it the NIL portal though.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not in.
Well,
it
started December 6th.
Yeah. Let me see.
So 45 days. So that's January.
Yeah,
20th.
January 18th.
18th. There you go.
Yeah, so it goes from December 5th until January 18th, 2023, and then there will be a 15-day spring window from May 1st to May 15th.
Which is where you got, Ricky Pearsall in that second window. Or there wasn't a second window at that time, but you got him right before fall.
If you're Ricky Pearsall, you got Graham Mertz. What do you do, Nick?
Listen, the NIL deal better be big. The bag better be big to stay in Gainesville. It's a very in-depth question because if you're a 5th round pick, you're gonna make 6 figures. It's good money. You're also guaranteed quite literally nothing as a 5th round pick.
Could get cut. Yeah, you could
be cut. Now you're on a practice squad making whatever you make on the practice squad. Fine money.
But you're playing. It's like $8,000 or $10,000 a week.
There you go. Not bad.
17 weeks. Yeah.
I'd sign up for that.
I'm not signing up for concussions. I don't know, bro. You might be getting beaten too, Nick.
You are. You certainly are on the practice squad.
I prefer
you come back to Florida. You come back to Florida. I don't think you're going to make that in NIL, but you're the man. You're the BMOC, big man on campus. Your roster spot is guaranteed. I don't know what the offense looks like with Graham Mertz or with Jack Miller running it, or without your 2 best offensive linemen, and Ethan White and Osiris Torrance. And you can still get concussions. You could blow your ACL out and ruin your draft stock for the following year. Right. So it's a tough decision. Now, if you had gotten, I don't know, if you had gotten a 5-star quarterback or whoever the best quarterback was, and somebody you liked, I think I just don't know what Ricky Pearsall does in Florida's offense in 2023 that appreciably changes his draft stock. I don't think he goes from maybe a 4th or 5th round guy this year, 5th round guy this year, to a 2nd rounder. Like, what does he have to do in 2023? I think he is the package that he is. And there's not much to project for him. So I don't know what the benefit is of staying at Florida other than you get another year in college. Maybe you love Florida. Maybe you love college football. You get some NIL money and you get to be featured next year. Whereas if you go and you're a 5th round pick, you may or may not be on a roster by the time the season starts.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a lot to weigh out. I think he comes back. We'll see what happens.
I hope he comes back. I mean, my goodness, we got to watch this team next year.
I got my hope in other spots.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast is going to go through next year, hopefully. So we've next year will be interesting, boys.
Let's talk the transfers, man. The guys that entered the portal.
Yep, Gators do have and just one more thing here. I do think that you are going to start seeing a lot more action, this week and going into early next week, through New Year's Day. I think you're going to start to see a lot more action in the portal as these players finish up their bowl games and as other teams finish up their bowl games as well. I do think that you're going to see a lot of action, and I do think the final, 16 days of the transfer portal are truly going to be wild. With that, I do think that you're going to have a lot of players that are in the transfer portal stick with the schools that they're currently at, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, but I do think that a lot of the action in the transfer portal will happen over the next 20 to 22 days here. as we go into the January 18th deadline. With that, let's give a quick shout out to our friends over at Alumni Hall. Go visit them on Archer Road in Gainesville, or go visit alumnihall.com if you are looking for anything Florida Gators related, cold weather related, sweaters, jackets, zip ups, whatever it might be. Go visit alumnihall.com. Thank you so much for everybody that visited them for the holidays and tagged us in gifts that you got from them. Again, alumnihall.com on Archer Road. As well there in Gainesville. Speaking of which, we did see a few names enter into the transfer portal since our last episode. We have seen the addition of offensive lineman Michael Tarquin. We've seen the addition of offensive lineman Ethan White. Certainly names that a lot of Gator fans did not necessarily expect to see in there. Nick Silk, want to get your thoughts on? I don't know why I keep saying it. Nick Silk.
Is hilarious though.
We also saw you saw the addition of Jordan Young, cornerback, originally out of Tampa. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else whose name I'm forgetting since the last episode. I don't think that there is.
Oh, yeah, you had Trevez Johnson.
Oh, and Trevez Johnson. So a couple of starters on the offensive line, a couple of folks on the defensive side of the ball. So, Silk, Nick, thoughts?
I think there's a lot of, and maybe we'll just call them casual fans that are freaking out. But I think a lot of these guys are players I thought or expected would be in the portal. I mean, we had stories ready for all these guys. I thought these are guys that would have transferred after spring, before the 2022 season. So if I look at this list, and not to down talk any of them, other than Ethan White, I was really big. I was a big Jordan Young guy. I thought he should have gotten more burn last year. I think he's a dog, a great tackler, a guy that could have helped you in the slot at nickel. Other than him, like, I'm looking at the list, and maybe Joshua Braun is a guy that could have gotten some more playing time, got stuck behind Osiris Torrance. Ethan White, obviously an second team all SEC offensive lineman. And maybe Michael Tarquin, but I think, with Austin Barber coming in, like, Austin Barber might be taking his spot. So I don't think Tarquin liked the way, after he came back from injury, the way that the rotation was working out, and Jordan Young obviously was not getting playing time.
Right.
When, some guys ahead of him were struggling. So to me, none of these guys have been a surprise outside of Ethan White. And I think Ethan White I think we're in an era right now where, and to say this, any of these guys can come back. Now, once you enter the transfer portal officially, the school does not have to honor your scholarship. So a guy like Ethan White, Florida's not going to not honor his scholarship if he wants to come back. Like, hey, yeah, man, your scholarship's sitting here, we're ready for you, waiting. It gives them, a little bit of leverage. Hey, let me go out, take a visit, take 2 visits, see what the market is for me, what the free market is for me as a student athlete, because I can go to Arkansas and see, hey, I know Josh Braun. What's the NIL scene here? I can go to Tennessee. Hey, what's the NIL market here? And then you're able to come back and you have some leverage in terms of negotiating.
Bad culture though, Nick.
That's it. I think that's just kind of where we're going. I don't disagree with you.
Going there with Georgia and Alabama. I think at
sure.
certain point, certain we're not Georgia and Alabama, but there's certain like you can act however you want to act with entering the portal, exiting the portal when you do it, but you can create bad culture in your program of a guy of senior. You're supposed to be a leader on your team. You're trying to set the foundation for a new culture and a new direction. I think Michael Tarquin, I know all these guys are friends, but I think him and Ethan White are close, so that could. I don't think it's just NIL, but from a culture standpoint, when you have your seniors like Gravon Dexter and those guys were looking for checks. We know guys are looking for checks. Like ETN, Montrell Johnson, they could get in the portal and bid and get checks. But from a cultural standpoint, you want to have the culture of if it's about, and then NIL went from name, image, and likeness to you going out and hustling and doing your thing and matching with brands to negotiating with boosters about salaries.
Listen, brother,
I'm just calling it playing.
It's pay for play, baby. It's pay for play. Like
that's
name, image, likeness has a small part in it,
and that's not happening everywhere. So you want to be careful in setting your culture up to this new era of what NIL is, the portal is, and this pay for play. You got to set a standard of what this is. Just like you're entering the portal, Ethan or anybody else, there's players from other programs as well. And I think you just got to be able to set the tone of how we going to operate. You know, are you going to get in bidding wars with every guy that enters the portal from your roster? Is that something that you're going to start entertaining? Do you have the resources to do that? So I do think that's a cultural thing there. You know, no slight to those guys from a bargaining, negotiating standpoint. They should do that if they feel that's important to them. But if you're Ethan White, not a whole lot of Power 5 schools give you an opportunity to come play football. University of Florida did. So from a culture standpoint, to throw your hand, if it's for NIL purposes, to throw your name into that hat as a senior leader, a fan base that has bought into you as name, image, and likeness. People believe in everything you got going. So to negotiate and to play those games, I think it's a little weird, and you're setting up a bad cultural precedence.
Yeah.
And not to backslide too much here, but that cultural presence, do you want to, if you're getting into name, image, and likeness, do you want a freshman left tackle that comes into your locker room making $1.5 million? Like, is that the culture that you want? And now you've got 10 other guys who have been busting their ass for 3 years being like, who the hell is this guy?
Right.
And why is he parking his Maserati outside of the indoor practice facility? Like, what is this? So I think when it comes down to it, you're making decisions with recruits when it comes to NIL. And okay, maybe we need to go and spend that on somebody, on a quarterback. That's a different position. But how many of those guys do you want every cycle? And you saw when it got Texas A&M. They got more kids in the portal than they had in their last recruiting class. And we'll see what happens with Miami and the way that they've spent. But I think you're going to see Florida potentially miss out on some guys that in recruiting that are just have a big price tag. And it's about setting a culture and creating a culture in your locker room. And I don't know that Billy Napier wants to, set a precedence where we're going to spend $15 million every year on a signing class.
Yeah, no, so certainly be interesting to see, certainly you saw with Ethan White. Are you guys surprised? Now, I don't expect Ethan White back. And some fans are saying, hey, maybe he will. I thought that the way that the note was written was interesting to say the least. I know that Ethan White mentioned very briefly Billy Napier and the staff. I think that's exactly how he put it. And then certainly you saw his mom, respond to it as well and thank John Hevesy and Dan Mullen for the opportunity to play. So I don't expect him back. Were you guys kind of surprised at that note being pretty Mullen and Hevesy?
Emotions. That's my thing is that's why I don't think it's NIL, because you're looking at a staff that got you to play to your highest potential since you've been on this campus. And you're going to say, let me go to another campus. Like we've seen these guys play on the heavy seat. They weren't playing at this level. So you get to the level where you're getting nationally recognized. And I thought however these people could leave however they want to, but there was some obvious, disdain in the exit. And we'll see how it all plays out. I don't think he comes back on with Dan. I think this is a out type of situation. But the offensive line wasn't great whenever Torrance was out. Like we've seen those guys, the entire offensive line struggle to get pushed and struggle for a lot of things that happened. The Vandy game was abysmal. We go to the bowl game, but we could go to games before the bowl game, games that matter, and we couldn't get any push or run the ball whatsoever. So I don't negotiate with terrorists. That's my thing, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like I just do not negotiate with terrorists. If there's a way to do everything, if it was about NIL, if it was about something you disagree with, you as a guy that's been on campus this long and a guy that's invested and the fans are invested in you, there's just a way to do everything. And you just got to set the standard, bro. And Billy could be absolutely wrong. I don't know what happened behind closed door. There could be some relationship stuff that went south, and Billy could be wrong. Billy could be right. The staff could be wrong. Could be right. I don't know, but I just think it's a way to go about doing doing absolutely everything.
So Ethan White, Michael Tarquin, you saw the addition of Trevez Johnson and Nick, I know that you
Nobody was mad about that one.
Already mentioned Jordan Young. So that brings the total list to 22, a couple of which have already found homes, but let's run through this list. Lorenzo Lingard, still looking for a home. Corey Collier is heading to Nebraska. Naquan Wright is still looking for a home. Yusuf Mugerbill still looking for a home.
Lingard went to Akron.
Oh, who did? I'm sorry.
Lorenzo Lingard.
Oh, my apologies. Lorenzo Lingard went to Akron. Best of luck to the young man there. DeJuan Black still looking for a home. Michael Tarquin looking for a home. Donovan McMillan heading to Pitt. David Reese looking for a home. Josh Braun to Arkansas. Lloyd Summerall, Dejon Reynolds, Chief Borders heading to Nebraska. Kamar Wilcoxon is headed to Toledo. Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Wilcoxon. Let me just double check that. Temple. I'm sorry. Kamar Wilcoxon to Temple. Avery Helm. Jalen Lee is heading to LSU. Jordan Young, Nick Elksness to South Carolina. Chris Thomas, Trent Whittemore, Griffin McDowell, Marco Ortiz to Nebraska, and Ethan White as well. All transferring. Certainly a lot to be looking out for. Lloyd Summerall to USF. My apologies for missing that one as well. Thank you, Wicked Fresh, in the chat. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? We discussed transfers, the recruiting class, Graham Mertz, what we expect to see out of the transfer portal. I think there's going to be a lot of action. Maybe not so much this week, but probably going into the week after. But any final thoughts before we close out for this week's show, gentlemen?
Yeah, def get me offensive linemen in the portal. I know everybody's losing their skull. We got plenty of time to get guys, plenty of guys still in the portal. We'll see how busy the visits get and, what the action look like. But get me some bodies in here. Straight up.
Absolutely.
Good bodies, not just people, not just Nick in the helmet playing left guard.
Yeah, for sure.
Give me some of the talented guys out the portal, man. We'll see what's up.
Nick, any final thoughts?
Left guard. I would just caution patience, and I get that's not what people want to hear right now. Obviously, the staff understands the importance of the portal. Just given on what the guys in the portal did last year. Like Soak said, the whole offense outside of Anthony Richardson was the portal. The recruiting class is good. I don't know how much more you go into the high school pool. You probably need about 10 guys from the portal. Still,
there's probably some JUCO guys. I mean, I was kind of thinking about that earlier that Florida may go after at the JUCO ranks. I've not heard any names. Nick or Silk, have you guys heard anything at the JUCO rank? I mean, this is about the time that folks go in and try to plug a hole or two, but I think COVID kind of screwed up JUCO, right? But the size of these rosters and these guys getting the chance to stick around for an extra year, and then the transfer portal certainly has unfortunately changed the JUCO ranks. But
I think you still gonna get some guys that hop in the portal too. Some of these bowl games finish up from some of these rosters that got like more important bowl games, New Year's Six bowls. A lot of that's about to happen. So hopefully we're tampering. Shout out to Edgar. I hit Edgar up to see if we could figure out who we tampering with. So hopefully we tampering and when these New Year's Six bowls got in, some of the guys that hit the portal were out there. But yeah, there are some JUCO names out there that I'm not prepared. But I have seen some JUCO names pop up in a lot of different positions, and I do think that's the area we'll be try to close in on. I do think the second portal, you're cutting it close. You may want to be honest, you want to grab a few guys out of that late portal, but ideally you want the bulk of your guys in for spring practice to start implementing the new system and what they're transferring to.
Yeah. James Williams said, look at the schools they're transferring to. We need a complete roster overhaul. While I think that that's somewhat true, I do think that schools where there's an opportunity at the lower level are going to yield more opportunities. Georgia's not going to go in and try to grab, 10, 12, 15 people out of the transfer portal every year. They're probably going after one or two, right? Same with Ohio State, same with Alabama. So just the opportunities are going to be a little bit more abundant. I don't think it's necessarily, this is just my opinion, just based on if a player goes to Nebraska or Temple or Akron or Toledo or USF, that there wasn't other opportunities at bigger schools or better schools. There just might not be that spot, right? They're attacking things differently because recruiting's going, a lot better, but I certainly appreciate that thought. And then I do want to shout out this comment here. Silk Smokes the Chronic, Nick Rupp's Baseball in St. Tom Aquinas, and Dan is always fishing on a boat. I mean, that's a sentence right there. I mean, that's
what a mesh.
Yeah, that's who we are.
A mesh,
right?
Man. Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, Nick, I think you have the song of the week this week, and we'll close out and wish everybody a great rest of the year. And we'll see you guys in 2020.
Hey, man, one time for my Jaguars, man. One time for your sorry ass Dolphins, bro.
Yeah, they are sorry.
4 in a row,
we were 8-3. We needed to win 1, maybe 2 games, and we're going to coast right into the playoffs. And now I got to worry about beating the Patriots or the Jets next week or the week after. My anxiety's high. I thought, man, this was the year for the Dolphins. The Gators were down, but at least my Dolphins were going to carry me. But alas, they've dolphined it up again.
How the tables have turned. Shout out to my Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is looking like the best quarterback in the state of Florida and one of the best in the leagues, man. Future's bright in Duval. How you feeling,
At least
Nick?
Something's bright there.
Nick, you got something to say about your Dolphins?
Yeah, I gotta watch the game with my dad here in South Florida, so that was nice.
Two was colorblind.
Great memories,
Santua just handing out gifts.
Did you at least take the jackets off?
The jackets were off. Jackets were off. How crazy do I want to go? Let's go. I got this. I think this song. I can't remember if I've done this song alone or not.
That's all right.
It's called "She Likes My Tattoos" by Party Alone.
I like names like that. A group name.
It's just. I think it's just a dude. It was like he must have bought like it.
Yeah, he parties alone. So come on.
Yeah. It's just a dude.
That's on me.
He bought some Instagram ads. So like as I'm scrolling through stories, the song kept popping up. It's a catchy little jingle. Not normally my cup of tea, but a catchy little jingle.
She Likes My Tattoos by Party Alone.
Party Alone. That's my type of guy, man.
Yeah, it spells it weird though.
Like party, like John.
Of course
Party.
he does.
Yeah. Party
PARDYALONE. One word. Party Alone. Definite Gen Z.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. All right, boys. Same corner, same time next week.
Same corner, same time, man. Y'all hold it down. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Be safe. Travel smart. You already know.
Yeah, appreciate everybody that listened in. I think we had like 200 and something people listening at one time. So appreciate you guys on YouTube checking us out. Boys, we'll see you guys in
next Monday be the first?
Next Monday. Yeah, we'll have to figure out. We'll figure out next week.
Unless they change something on the calendar, Nick.
Yep.
Next,
then
we're not doing a New Year's Day 9 a.m.
Oh, they should calendar, Nick.
Next Monday is January 2nd, actually. So they did change something up on the calendar for you. The New Year's Day is next Sunday.
Okay.
All right.
Partying up like it's 1999.
Watch out for Y2K, boys. We'll see you guys.